Welcome to Essential Ingredients, powered by NextGen Purpose. EI serves up thoughtful conversations with industry leaders and pioneers who support a regenerative future for our food system. The stories shared by our guests are meant to spark curiosity and inspire informed global change. Welcome to Essential Ingredients. I'm your host, Justine Reichman. With me today is Ameet Kallarackal, who is the CEO and founder of Fisherman. Welcome, Ameet.
Thank you so much for having me, Justine.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I'm so looking forward to just getting to know you and getting to know a little bit about Fisherman and what inspired you as a founder. So, before we get going and we get too far into it, I'd love for you to explain to our listeners a little bit about what Fisherman is. And then later I'll ask you questions about, your background and all those things. So for the moment, just a short 30-second pitch on Fisherman.
100%. So Fisherman is here to service restaurant owners, small business operators in general who are not the most technically savvy and who are super busy operating their in-person business. And so, there's a lot of folks out there who, are owner operators, busy behind the booth or in the kitchen and working on their in-person operations, but they don't have the budget to necessarily hire a marketing person or a technical person. Maybe they don't have the skills to manage this stuff themselves, and they can't go wade through the noise to find an agency. And for those people, that's why Fisherman exists. We have products that make websites and run social media and handle the entire online presence for busy small business owners, with a focus on the restaurant industry. And we do that with our tools that have automated a lot of that process and with a world-class customer support team so that, the business owners don't have to touch anything technology-wise, and they can just see how their business is succeeding online while they focus on the in-person side.
Sounds like a dream.
I hope so.
So, tell me first, thank you for sharing that. And second, my question for you is, how did you come up with this idea?
Great question. So, I think when we look back, there's definitely a lot of elements of my background that led me here. Growing up, my parents actually had a website agency that they ran for a little bit. And while they did that, it was my first exposure to the world of graphic designers and WordPress. And so even when I was in middle school and high school, I was starting to get my hands wet with these tools. And it was just so interesting that you could create something without necessarily knowing how to code. You could create something that looked great and, led to sales. And they were working with some small business owners at the time. I also personally spent time working at a local restaurant and, really got to understand. I mean, my best friend's, dad was a restaurant owner, and, seeing that restaurant growing up and working there for a little bit of time, just really seeing how busy the life of an entrepreneur is. And especially, you're there primarily to put food on the table, and, you're learning 100 things to make that dream a reality. And a lot of times computers and technology and the online component is the last thing you want to have to worry about. And so I just remember, being there and seeing how busy they were, how often they were fielding conversations with salespeople who were coming in soliciting business, and all sorts of things they had to deal with. And so fast forward a bit, when I got to college, I worked on a different startup, and kind of fell into that with a friend of mine, and we ended up working on that for a few years and built out a big team and had built out an organization. We eventually were able to exit that startup, and at the end of that, I really fell in love with the idea of building something from scratch. And looking back at my experience doing some freelance web design and development, working in that restaurant, I wanted to get back into figuring out how we could help more small business owners and how we could do that at scale, not just, one or two at a time, but how can we help thousands of small business owners become successful? So that was really the genesis of the Fisherman concept. And a few years later, we're well on our way to accomplishing that mission.
Well, congratulations on that. And as an fellow entrepreneur, to me, I always like to surround myself with experts with the skills that I don't necessarily have, right? because I have a vision and I can execute on that vision, but I don't necessarily know how to do every little step. I don't know how to code, right? I mean, yeah, I put together the Squarespace site when we first launched, right? Because it was a startup and you learn, that's what entrepreneurs do, right? We
Right.
figure it out. You do the jobs that nobody else wants to do. You do them before you can pay people for them.
Right.
But, what you learn, or what I learned that as we grew, was that you need somebody with those skills. You need somebody that can take you to the next level, because while you got your page up there to tell people what you're doing, there's a lot more to that page than just throwing it up there. There's a lot more that goes into it. So I think that it's a great solution for people, and it's all encompassing. And I got to ask, why food for you? I mean, I know you mentioned, that you worked in a restaurant business and you saw these voids, but, was there anything else that really brought you to focus on the restaurant industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think growing up, I mean, this is still the case. When I go home, the first thing is my mom will have a meal ready for me. And, she loves to be able to prepare that. My dad too. I mean, my whole family loves to cook, and so much happens over a meal. And that's what a lot of these restaurateurs are trying to create, is that type of experience for people. So I think growing up, just seeing how much community is built around food, and I think this is the reason a lot of people try to get into restaurant technology, is they have really positive experiences with food. And I love the small business restaurant owner operator type person, because a lot of times they do come from that type of culture. It's family owned businesses, or a lot of immigrant owned businesses, and it's a lot of people who, this is what they know, this is what they love, and maybe they're not the best business operator, and they're going to learn those skills along the way, but this is something they really know, this is something they really love, and I do too, and I'd love to help them be able to make this a reality for more people. So I think just that food has just always been a huge part of my life, and certainly working in the industry a bit and seeing it firsthand. And then of course there's more of the market dynamics, I guess you could say, is huge industry. Restaurants are always going to be around. There's this massive need still for a lot of those restaurants to have a great web presence, and then also just seeing how much interaction between consumers and restaurants happen online. There's some businesses where at the end of the day, you're only going to hear about this business by word of mouth. You're not going to Google search to find a certain type of business near you, but you're always going to do that for food, for restaurants. So there's a lot of activity that does happen online, and if you're not optimized for it, you're going to miss out on a lot of upside. So it felt like something where we could deliver a ton of value, and we honestly tested a lot of industries, and we do service other industries too. But food seemed to be an area that made a ton of sense to focus on, and we could help out a lot of people along the way.
So as a serial entrepreneur, because you exited your first business, right? And now this is your second business, or maybe there were others in between, but either way, I know that you felt like there was a need, and you sort of took the skills that you had learned growing up with your family, and that's how you came up with this idea. But was there like some moment that you're like, oh my God, I got it. This is what I need to build. This is the solution.
It's a good question. We really started, for Fisherman, really started from this hypothesis that if you give someone something, especially with a website, right? A website is our core initial first product. And there's so many tools to build something. Like you were saying, you were able to build your first one on Squarespace. There's a lot of tools like that out there. There's just a lot of people who are scared to use them, don't know how to use them, don't have the time to use them, because it can require some effort. And our whole hypothesis was that if we just showed someone the final product, instead of saying, hey, here's a tool to do the thing yourself, or hey, pay a lot of money and then we'll do it for you, if we could just show them before anything else, there's a lot of people that would otherwise have said no who would say yes. And that was this hypothesis we carried. And so in the early days, we actually built websites using Wix and Squarespace. And we would just build them before walking into a restaurant and showing them, hey, we went ahead and built you a website. What do you think? And those early days where we did that, whenever a business owner was like, what? So you built this for me? I didn't even know you were doing this. This looks great. anytime we had that experience, that's when the light bulb went off, and it became clear that, yeah, there's a lot of value if we can take this perceived, pressure point and take it away. Because a lot of times these people have dreamed of having one, or thought about having one. Maybe they've had one in the past and something went wrong. But us showing them that, no, this can be a really easy thing, opened the door for a lot more. So I think that was testing that hypothesis in that way was really the first time where we felt, all right, it makes sense for us to build an entire product that can do all this.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And so when you did that, how often did they say, I'm in?
I mean, most of the time they'd shut the door before we even had a chance to chat, right? But yeah, I mean, a lot of it in the early days was truly going door to door in dense, dense urban areas where there's a lot of restaurants, and going one at a time and just trying to chat with an owner. And people do this all the time, right? I mean, in the restaurant technology world, so many businesses that are trying to make it work in that space. And so these business owners are constantly, warding off people that are trying to sell them something. And so it's tough. I think the hardest part is just to have that conversation, and had to overcome a lot of fear and, of rejection, to get to that point. But once we sat someone down, once we had a conversation, I think it was almost always of value. If they didn't right out of the gate say, yes, we want to do this, at the very least, they'd tell us why or why not. And that would teach us so much about, what made sense to focus on. So, I mean, maybe it was 20-30% of people who were absolutely, in to try it, which is not the majority. Maybe it was even less, but every single one of those conversations we did have had a huge impact on, what we ended up focusing on.
And to, build on that, you also do social for them as well. You offer these other services. So I'm wondering, because building social is not easy, right? They're always changing the algorithms and what they're looking for and all these different things. And it's a skill that oftentimes I think people take for granted, right? That's a real skill that you need to know how to do. And I'm wondering, when you've talked to your clients, how much interaction do you have with them after you've set everything up and as you're doing this work to really understand the impact you're having for them versus before, when they were just trying to do everything themselves without that expertise?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we're a subscription service. We don't charge anything for the most part, unless there's really specific circumstances. We don't charge anything up front. Everything is, in fact, we actually have a free trial, so it's totally free to start. And then but we do charge on a monthly basis or an annual basis. And so what that means is it's easy to get started, but every single month somebody sees a receipt for, a payment, they're going to ask themselves, what am I paying for? Is this worth it? Am I seeing value? And so,
Right.
the flip side of being able to make a bunch of money up front for doing work for someone is you have to consistently prove value. And
Right.
So it is something that's really top of mind is how do we demonstrate, how do we deliver value, and how do we demonstrate value? And the first part of it is of course getting their website set up, making sure they're happy with it, and people know, I mean, there's value in having a website no matter what. But on an ongoing basis, we do, especially with products like social media or other kind of brand related work we might do, there's ongoing clear input. You'll see a new post, you'll see the comments there, you'll see new followers. But we do need to do some work regularly to show how much website traffic month over month is actually coming here. How quickly are you rising up the rankings on Google for, your website showing up for, best tacos near me as opposed to your competitors? And so there's certainly work that, we try to do to make sure those things are happening, and then show the customer, hey, here's how it's going. Here's how, the numbers are showing that the work is paying off. But it's tricky. There's no binary work that you do and it's working. It certainly is a bit of experimentation, and it does take time to see the value, but as much as possible, demonstrating that value is certainly really important, especially for a business like ours.
I think what I'm most curious about, because I love this idea, how accessible is it to the entrepreneur in terms of price point?
Great question. Yeah, I mean, for us, we really started out being at the same price as a Squarespace or a Wix, but with a completely different value proposition where it's done for you, right? And that was, I think that was great for getting a lot of signups, but we realized pretty quickly it's not a very sustainable business model
Right.
in the long run. And so we've had to increase our prices a bit there, but the value is still so much greater than it was in the past. And so we have a bunch of different offerings, and it ranges from, really that, $50 a month, which is pretty comparable to some of these do-it-yourself platforms, all the way up to, $300 a month if someone's trying to do everything with us and have us really be more or less a marketing specialist on their team. And so even at the high end, it's pretty affordable for most businesses. We're really targeting, these ambitious business owners that are still maybe single location, maybe a couple locations, but they really do want to have a very successful business. They want to be proactive in growing it. So as we add new products, those would be add-ons, but generally our core packages live within this pretty wide range. And so depending on what they want, what they're willing to spend, hopefully we can meet them where they're at.
I think that it sounds amazing. And I'm curious, when you say that you provide the services, and that's at the higher end, obviously, a few $100s, are you doing this? Are you creating the content? Are you writing the content? Are you producing it for both the website and various social media outlets? Or is there a limit to it? Like if it's one business, it's one website, one Instagram, one LinkedIn. Can you walk me through what that looks like?
Definitely. And the social media is a relatively new service for us. And so I bet you in 3 months or in 6 months, it's going to look different from what it looks like now.
Right.
But yeah, we do Instagram, Facebook, we do blogging. And of course, there's the website, and we have platforms where people can come in, no matter what plan they're on, they can come in and they can manage this work on their own. They can schedule posts, they can create the posts, they can see the analytics, right? But for the most part, our customers are looking for us to do that. And
Well, that's what I was asking. So you're actually doing the social, you're creating the posts, you're creating the copy, you're creating the images, you're working within a brand that exists using
right.
their colors, their aesthetic, and their voice.
That's right. And if they don't have that,
You
we have a
create
brand
it.
service. Yeah. So, and it's super cheap. It's a fraction of the cost of any agency out there. We'll create their logo, we'll create their color palette, their typography, give them an entire overall digital brand. And if they're a customer of ours, it's really, really inexpensive, because for us, that enables everything else to look and feel better. So it makes the website look better if you have a really great brand. It of course makes the social media better. Our first step is we take that brand and we'll create, social post templates that business owner can use themselves, or we will literally create that content for them. We'll schedule it out. They have the option to approve or say no to it. And we'll do that multiple times per week. There's posts that are going out on Facebook and Instagram. We even do engagement with followers and reactions to try to grow that follower base. So again, down the road, we probably will tier out different options for something like social media, because there really is an infinite amount of work you can do there. And so for now, we're bucketing it all into a standard offering, but I'm sure along the way we'll have different tiers. And just like we've done with the website product, we're going to be, automating a lot of this work too. This is some of the cool advancements in AI that, we can leverage, and we've been building ourselves, enable us to do this stuff much better and much faster than a typical agency. So it means we can turn this stuff around really quickly without limiting any quality there.
So are you able to tailor things with code, etc., or are you using the basic WordPress or Squarespace?
No, we built everything from scratch.
Yeah, you build everything from
So
scratch.
yeah, it's our own platform. Yeah, maybe we shouldn't have, but we did, and it gives us a lot more control for things like this. And
Okay. And does it give the founder or the marketing team of that company the ability to go in there and make easy changes without having to contact you? Or is that something that they have to do, is to go through you?
No, 100%. Every single plan includes direct access to our dashboard, so they can manage content themselves. And because we've built this for business owners that, the reason they would come in is to change their hours of operation if there's something that's changed all of a
Right.
sudden, or update the photos, or, change information that's just wrong, that's more time sensitive. So we've made it really, really easy to use. It's way simpler than a dashboard in Squarespace or Wix, because those platforms have a ton of flexibility, and there's, a lot of things you can do, but that also makes the user experience more complicated. For
Right.
us, it's a bit more streamlined because we're handling the design decisions for the most part, to make sure it looks good and is operating well for that type of business. But they have full control over anything content related, and branding related on the site.
Awesome. Well, I think this sounds like an amazing resource, and I love how you got started. And it sounds like, is this a passion of yours?
Yeah,
Or
of
are you
course.
just passionate about being an entrepreneur?
I guess it's sometimes hard to separate the two. And I will say I'm most passionate about the people that we get to work with over the products that we're building. It's fun to build products. I really like doing that. And I really love building a team, and seeing how that changes over time. So I definitely love entrepreneurship, but I mean, I love small business owners so much. I really love the grit, and I mean, I see it, right? We're going through it ourselves. We're a small business, and it is really hard. All the
Yeah.
people on their podcast, right? It's a hard thing to do, as you know, and I really have so much respect for the people that are, not just doing that work in front of a computer like me, but are on their feet from 5 a.m. sometimes till midnight every
Right.
single day. They're doing this work, and I don't know. I really have a respect for that grit, and I have an admiration for it. So it's very fun to be able to work really closely with them. Yeah, and keep that really close to our mission, regardless of if it's a restaurant or a barbershop, or whatever it might be, right? That type of person, I love working with, and
You
our
just
whole
want
team
you
does.
you're there to support these entrepreneurs, to be a resource, as I understand it, and to
That
make it a little bit more accessible and easier for them to grow, and have
exactly.
access to an expert that otherwise might be very prohibitively expensive.
100%. In fact, that's kind of why we're named fishermen. There's one part of the story, which is the quote: "You give someone a fish, they eat for a day; teach them to fish, they eat for a lifetime."
Right.
And so a big part of it is education and empowerment. But also, if you think about, you go to a nice seafood restaurant and you have this, this dish on your table, you might think about the waiter that brought it out, or the chef in the kitchen that prepared it, but very rarely do you think about the fisherman, who actually caught that fish. And so we
Right.
like to think of ourselves as doing the dirty work, maybe behind the scenes, to make everyone else look good. And yeah, so I think that's a big part of, and what we want to do is support these folks.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you sharing your story, your inspiration. And I'm just curious, what's next for Fisherman? Do you have some new products coming out or new additions that people can look out for?
Absolutely. So, we really did start out as a website company. And I think the big learning is, yes, websites are so important. It's really the gate to the rest of your online experience. But we're really morphing into not just a website company, but this all-in-one marketing solution for small business owners. And probably very specifically brick and mortar business owners. We want to be that resource for them, where they don't have to go necessarily hire a full team, right? They can work with us. And so a lot of the stuff we're launching now, I mean, social media is, the first in that new set. We've always done a lot of SEO work, search engine optimization, because
Yeah.
that's tied to the website. But there's a lot of new marketing related work that we're going to be doing, things like paid advertising, or email marketing, and really rounding out this full set of, from discovery, and lead gen to transaction. We've got an e-commerce product that we've been building, to help people actually sell products directly online, all the way to loyalty and retention, so that everything
Oh,
in this marketing world can be covered. So
is-
that's more of where we're heading.
cool. Does gamification play a role in that?
That's a good question. I think it could, especially on the loyalty side.
Right.
I think it certainly could. Yeah, I'll have to do more research around that. I think
Well, you'll
I
have
think
to
that'd
keep
be
me
really
posted.
fun.
You'll have
Yeah,
to keep me
especially on the
posted on it.
education. Yeah, on the education side for our customers too. There could be a really cool way to incorporate that.
Well, I mean, it was so great to meet you. I think you're an amazing resource, and something that the founders that are listening and part of the community can really take advantage of. So I appreciate you sharing your information, and I can't wait to continue to watch you, grow, both you and the company, to see how it progresses and see what this agency becomes down the road. I mean, just before we wrap up, for those listeners and viewers that are tuned in today and as excited as I am about your product, and that listen to the whole podcast, of course, is there a discount code we can offer them?
Yes, we'll have a code that'll be called Next Gen Chef that could be used at
Next
checkout.
Gen Purpose.
Oh,
We switched our name, but that's okay. Next Gen Purpose.
We'll do Next Gen Purpose then. So we'll have a code at checkout that can be used for Next Gen Purpose, and we'll give 10% off for anybody who signs up on any package with us, and they can chat with someone on our team before, of course, and we'll set them up with a discount as well as a 30-day free trial. So truly no risk to get going, and yeah, we'd love to work with folks in your community.
Thank you so much, Ameet. We will continue to watch you and keep us posted as things progress.
That sounds great.
To learn more about these episodes and access show notes, go to nextgenpurpose.com and choose podcast. If you like this episode, head to Apple Podcasts or your favorite platform to subscribe and leave us a review. Visit the Next Gen Purpose YouTube channel to subscribe to our EI videocast and give this episode a like while you're there. Follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn at Next Gen Purpose, and connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram at Justine_Reichman. Thanks for joining us.